Howdy. Hello. Hi. It's been a really long time since I've done one of these, so I figured I was about to. And I also have been kind of sitting with myself and just kind of felt compelled to make one of these where I kind of ramble on about not only things that have been happening lately, but things that I've kind of contemplated in the process of everything that's been happening lately and everything that I've been experiencing. And so I felt like I'd come on and share that with you. I do apologize. There might be some noise in the background. There's construction happening again at my apartment complex, or at least just down the road from. But alas, here we are. I am currently in the process of making my sandwich board signs that are going to kind of advertise for all of my business things that I do. And I think that it's really fitting I do it during this talk. Because my talk today is on what happens on the other side of your comfort zone, what happens on the other side of imposter syndrome. And I think that's really relevant for what I've been going through lately and something that I've really gotten to kind of digest wholeheartedly. And so something that now receiving a lot of the benefit, I want to be able to share and express some of the things that I've been learning as I kind of just release into that, whether you think you're good enough or not, just let it happen. And so here's some of my thoughts. As far as art goes, a lot of the time, one of the biggest things we as artists do is we just make it exist first and then we make it good later. We'll do a rough draft. We'll do, you know what I mean, like a pencil sketch first and then we'll build up from there. And life really should be no different. Of course, the pencil sketch looks, or of course, like the pen drawing, like the finished drawing would look daunting if you're just going in and doing the finishing touches at the very beginning. You know what I mean? You need the pencil sketch first. And I feel like stepping into things outside of your comfort zone is stepping into the pen phase. The comfort zone really is like you're penciling everything down. You have the ability to erase and kind of like make and play with whatever's there. And I feel like that truly doesn't ever go away because no matter how much, you know, fuckery you do with the pen, you can go in with the paint instead afterwards and fix it up. Anyway, running off with that analogy. The biggest thing I wanted to kind of target with that point is that there are stages. And I feel like once you make that initial step, the other phases come easy. Once you dive into that decision that I don't always get to decide my worth because I don't always have the best judgment and we're always our own worst critics, so we don't see ourselves in the same way that other people are seeing our art. Whenever I was talking in the beginning about my tattoos to the lady Alex that owns the studio that I now work at, it was just kind of like I hardly made mention of it. It was just kind of something I did on the side underneath, like it was something I got a little good at a while back and I just put it in the back pocket because to me as well, it's just kind of another medium. Like it's something else that I can do that is art. And so to be able to elaborate on that, I think is where it's the doodle phase. And I'm starting to recognize that doodle phase as not only not scary, but playful, but truly just kind of like forgiving, very fucking forgiving. And like it offers a safe place to surrender because you can just kind of experiment and explore with the self if we're going to step outside of the analogy. Something I've really been kind of coming into lately that I've not necessarily been hiding from, but I just don't feel as though I was ready for, was to fully step into sharing my experience and ways of thinking as far as the path goes. There's a lot of teaching that can be done, and there's a lot to be learned and offered through that. But I really don't think that I was in a position to teach yet because I didn't have the capacity to hold myself responsible, not only for an extended period of time myself and my own habits and hobbies and routines and patterns and just very like human brainness, but I also needed to develop the capacity to hold myself and others. And not only in space, but to hold myself and others accountable, to be able to develop and really define and stand in those boundaries. One of the best things I've found on the other side of imposter syndrome is that the imposter is a fucking liar. Like he doesn't know shit. They don't know anything. Like they're afraid of something they have no context for. None. What's the worst that could happen? Is they don't think you're any good. Okay, so start over. Try again. Figure it out. What did you do wrong that you can, or like what wasn't enough that you have to try and add more to that or like add more attention or intention to that. And at the very best, what can go right? And like what can go insanely right? Maybe you're seen for who you are and you're actually appreciated for that being, that person, that human. Sorry, I realized my glasses are falling down my face like a granny because I need to look like that at my sign. But I keep surprising myself with how good I can be when I let myself be good with everything, not just with art, but in big ways with art, because art is my job. Art is my, you know what I mean? That's my career. That's my whole everything. That's my church. That's where I show up and I pour my soul into just, that's my life. But it can be used across the board. Like everything is a work in progress. Relationships with friends, with family, being able to kind of like look at that relationship in the very beginning and say, I like these aspects of self together. I like who I am when I'm with you. But how can we communicate and build and work through the trying parts of this so that we can be authentic to ourselves as individuals while also sharing space as partners, as two individuals coming together and creating a unity. It's no longer just you and I, it's I and I. And we have to recognize like that partner has entirely different patterns, entirely different processes. And if you're living together, that can get even messier. And so to look at each other as you're always at the drawing board, to look at yourself as though you're always at the drawing board, but your goals are the pen. And to be able to kind of like achieve certain goals is to, and like evolve from those goals, is to refine that image over and over and over again. And sometimes it's working with totally new images. Sometimes that goal no longer looks like just getting a house or doing this or doing like getting married or having children or whatever most people's standards are. Beyond that, it's you can start creating different images like, okay, who do I want to be this year as an individual outside of this relationship while we work to nurture what we have going on inside the relationship? How can we show up for each other while kind of pulling away and showing up for ourselves? I think that's really fucking important as well. To be able to play, I think, is something we take away from ourselves. It's almost like we have to earn play instead of living in play, which I think is nonsense. And granted, I'm still teaching myself because in a very, very real way, I am still very stuck in my patterns and my dramas and my dilemmas. And I am very blessed to have a partner that he's doing his own conscious practice very differently, mind you. Like we are polar opposites. He's a blue collar type technician and I'm like, well, I'm me. I'm floating into the ether and like stumbling through life with my paint in hand. But we come together and he understands aspects of me that not many people can grasp, not many people can reach. And he shows up for me and anticipates my needs in such a way that doesn't take from himself. And whenever it does, he is able and cognizant enough to recognize that. And whenever he isn't, I try to be accountable enough to say, I think I'm projecting this and giving you more than you need to be handling right now, or whatever the case may be. Especially because we parent together. There are so many times where, you know what I mean? Like and I know at the end of the day, more than anything, we both have Temperance's best interest in mind, and that's just the way that it always needs to be. But you know what I mean? We have very different parenting styles. And so something we've done over the past couple of years is like we'll step away as the one is kind of having that experience with her so that we can each have our own individual unique experience with her. No one's right, no one's wrong. Like if there's something that really is like an overstepping of boundaries or like what have you, and they're not being communicated properly, then it's like, okay, like let's all step away and reset and then come back. If we still can't see eye to eye on this, then we all have to kind of agree to disagree, until we can kind of actually come together in a way that makes sense for all of us in that moment. Because we can't, again, give more than what we have. That's just, you can't give from an empty cup. And that's a standard a lot of people set for themselves, I find, is they need to constantly be accessible and constantly need to know where they are, what's going on, what's, you know what I mean? They need to be involved in one another's lives. And while that's perfectly fine, that's a way of life for a lot of people. And like I know even with myself and my partner, we do a lot of things together. Like there's a lot that we kind of just automatically include each other in our day-to-day lives. And I think that's also kind of important because it's a constant routine and relationship with the other person that you're creating a life with. Sorry, I'm using paint markers, so I'm going to need to shake every once in a while, and I got my trusty wood board to push the doohickey on. But one of the biggest things in me and Kyle's relationship for the entire 4 years has been trust and freedom. Like beyond anything, we have these mutual understandings that we are faithful to one another. We are a monogamous relationship. That is first rule, end of story. Like as long as I don't have to worry about where you're going, what you're doing, who you're talking to, whatever, I don't give a fuck. Like you're busy with work, you talk to work humans, cool, good, honestly good. Like go away for a couple days, be able to come back together and truly appreciate each other's company is something that I think is so fucking necessary in a lasting relationship, because then you're able to come together with exciting, new, refreshed perspectives. At least you should. If you're not able to come together with your partner in those capacities, then you probably shouldn't be with that partner. Like, at least now and again. You know what I mean? Like, everyone has tiffs, everyone has arguments, you know. Fucking source knows we are far from perfect. We argue about a lot of things because we are such different humans, but we don't ever lash out at the other person because of what they want to do with themselves or what they want to do with the family. You know what I mean? Like there needs to be, I think, for the foundation of every relationship, respect needs to be overall. Like if you don't have respect, you have literally nothing. And while I understand absolutely that a lot of victims, especially of domestic violence and those sorts of incidences, they don't always recognize they have a choice in the beginning. And so sometimes it takes a couple times. And that I fully understand. I'm never going to question that. But settle for better. Because there is better out there. There are people who are willing and capable to see you at the value you kind of assign yourself to. You know what I mean? One of my biggest fears in the beginning of tattooing, and coming back to the imposter syndrome thing a little bit, one of my biggest fears with coming back to the tattoo industry was I'm going to have to, you know what I mean, keep up at a level that I don't know I can yet because I didn't know I had that capacity. And also, I'm going to have to charge more for my services because the industry kind of demands that right now. And that was something I was so nervous for because for years I undersold myself for years I sold myself as like I've been tattooing for 16 years, and within that I took many hiatuses, and so I kind of assigned myself this title of like piece of shit artist human. And so I'm like, oh, I'm not worth more than $100 an hour. Like, people work hard for that money, because I thought people were making money or were having as hard a time making money as I was. You know what I mean? Like, that was the foundational level I was able to see everything else from. And now, as someone who's booking steadily, who's, you know what I mean, making a living off of many different forms of art that carry from season to season to season, I'm able to see much more clearly, like, there's definitely a demographic for me. And the very same exists for people. You know what I mean? In the beginning, it's terrifying to walk away from the people, the places, and the things that bring you so much familiar joy. But on the other side of that exists people who are able to see you, as that full fucking spectrum, which is what I'm in myself finding as I slowly shift towards a life, a career, and the adventure that makes the most sense to me. And so that's why I feel it necessary to share it. I'm really going to have to clear my space. Beyond the fan, I'm noticing a lot of just like happenings in the apartment, and it's a busy time of year. It is definitely like spooky season is upon us, and they don't call it that for no reason. Like, that's been slacking on my shit. And that's another thing too. Hygiene, both spiritual, environmental, cleanliness is so fucking necessary to be able to come into community with people who understand and see and hear you and your needs as you need to be seen and heard. And then to also be in a nurturing environment, both physically, emotionally, energetically, that nurtures that environment that you're and to create that self that you're hoping to kind of become in the process of your self recovery, because that's what we're all here for, isn't it? Fucking self recovery. None of us come here with some like manual on what to do. Every single one of us, like, depending on our class of existence, have a different standard of existing. Every single one of us, based off of what we've experienced, have a different lesson to learn in this incarnation. And so I don't think it's fair to ask just about anything from any one person in particular. That's why we have friends. That's why it takes a village, because no one person has the answer or the space or the power or ability for absolutely everything. We need our communities. We need our people. And in a big way, we need to show up for ourselves. Whenever the going gets glum, we need to be able to remind ourselves that there is good and that we are good, and so we can bring good. And sometimes that literally just means bringing art, making art happen, because sometimes we can't see good. Sometimes good just is not fucking there, and that's okay too. I remember parts earlier in my process of finding out what life was. And especially after having my daughter, I started having panic attacks really fucking badly. And in a big way, it was showing my body that it was taking on too much. It had too much going on, and it needed to stop. It needed to slow down. And it was painful. I could not, and I truly don't think anyone who experiences those levels of panic attack, it's impossible to explain the pain, because it's physical pain. It feels like your lungs and your ribs are being crushed in. And like, I still remember the collapsing of my chest. I can't to this day express with all my fucking words what that felt like and how terrifying it was, even though I knew that that was going to pass, and it was impossible for that feeling right there to kill me. Those with trauma, those with deep experiences of grief and, you know what I mean, panic, and the people who have really needed to stay alert to survive, their bodies are going to go through moments of that, like, reliving that trauma. And during moments like that, I remember thinking, like, I'm never going to be better. I'm never going to feel okay or normal. Like, there's no living these experiences without just not, you know what I mean? That permanent damage. And to some extent, it's true. You get a lot better though at handling those moments, and you end up with this extra kind of like reserve or capacity to hold on to things. Like it's like working a muscle. You know what I mean? Your capacity for caring, your capacity for giving a shit, your capacity for showing up, and your capacity for just pouring emotion into things becomes so very full. And so to be able to have outlets that you pour that into, whether that's something physical, exercise is a freaking wonderful modality. And like Qigong, yoga, lifting weights, cardio releases some shit. Pilates, like move your body in ways that it doesn't always move. And so that way, whenever you need those muscles to kind of come in handy and you're lifting one thing to another, or if you're like me and you're over 30 and you're starting, like, you start to lose muscle mass, you need to keep up with that so that your body has the capacity to go on with sitting consciously with yourself, with pouring into art, pouring into something, journaling, something that isn't just self, isn't just internalized thought. You're able to kind of create a steadier version and a steadier idea of yourself. You're able to better reflect when you're on the other side of that panic attack, when you're on the other side of that like 4 week long low swing where you can't see yourself or your surroundings clearly. On the other side of that, you have a better perspective of self. And so the next time that you go through that, because it's inevitable, there will be a next time, you will have a better understanding of who you are in those moments and what you are capable of. So that way you can either anticipate those moments, say to your spouse, your child, your whoever the fuck is in the immediate whatever, I am in this state, I need peace, or I need it to be understood that like I am just not speaking from my full heart right now. I am speaking from a very frustrated perspective, like aspect of self, and just I need full fucking reset. Like, and granted, a lot of the times my family can kind of anticipate those moments because they can see it within me. They're like, oh fuck, okay, step back. You know what I mean? Let that moment happen. And I offer them that same respect in return. Just take the fucking moment, walk away. We'll get there later. We'll figure that out later. In that moment, the only thing that person needs to do is bring themselves back to center and like let their nervous system settle that little bit, because no one can make a decision in that state of frantic frazzleness. No one is fully taking on all of the details from their environment, all of the context from the people that they're perceiving as threats when they're in that state of emergency. It just doesn't work that way. And so to be able to give them that space to just process, regardless of if they are a person who's experienced trauma or not. Some people just have that chemically imbalanced brain. I myself am one of them. With the additional everything on top, being a human is fucking difficult. You know what I mean? We allow people grace when they are fucking struggling. I think that should be a given, but we just haven't figured that out yet. And mind you too, I think it's hard to remember that other people struggle whenever our individual struggles feel so impossible. They feel so permanent and so awful. It's like, how can anyone feel as badly as I do? And at least I don't know if anyone else feels like that. I know there's been times I felt like that where it's like I'm just the lowest of the low. And I think that's where imposter syndrome really kind of stems from at times, is just this anxious attachment to the idea that we are not as good as other people. We're not good enough to be measured up to those other people. And it's a lie. Again, the imposter, he's a fucking liar. He does not tell the truth. He, she, I, it, the ego does not tell the truth. I don't know even why I made that justification, but I mean, if it helps someone, I'm glad. Love y'all. All of you. Anyhow, it's been about 25 minutes about this. If you are on the verge of making a decision based off of something you are passionate about, do not leave it to whether you think you are good or not. Just do the thing. Get relatively okay at it. Have a stock of things that you want to try and put out to the world and let it see. let the world see. The worst they can do is laugh. And the ones who laugh aren't meant to see your shit. The ones who do see your shit and they vibe with that, that's your tribe. Because you're fucking people. The amount of friends, like lifelong soul bro buddies that I have made just doing markets and putting myself in the places that make sense, in the studio that makes sense, not settling for one that I thought I was good enough for, but allowing myself to accept an opportunity being in the right place at the right time. Not because I thought I was good enough, but because I saw that opportunity and I was like, why wouldn't I fucking take that? Take it. Best case Ontario, you're gonna find out you're really good at it. Toodles.